You look
Sometimes the
absolutely
strongest
stunning
version of
tonight.
yourself
Thank you.
emerges
This
from the
place is
ruins of who
perfect.
you used
I'm
to
glad
be.
you're here with me.
Sometimes it takes losing everything to discover you had everything inside you all along. This is a story about a woman who was told she was broken, a man who realized too late what he had lost, and a miracle that changed everything. Olivia Monroe had learned that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about feeling the fear and walking forward anyway. Today, at 29 years old, she would walk into Hamilton Law Associates and sign away 5 years of marriage to a man who had convinced her she was worthless. But unlike the broken woman Derek Sullivan had discarded 6 months ago, Olivia walked through those glass doors with her head high and her heart finally at peace. The reception area smelled of expensive coffee and polished wood. Everything here screamed success and power, the kind of world Derek thrived in. Olivia checked in with the receptionist, a young woman who barely looked up from her computer screen. While she waited, Olivia adjusted her flowing navy coat, making sure it concealed the secret she carried beneath. 6 months of healing. 6 months of building a new life. 6 months of growing a miracle that Derek had sworn was impossible. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother: "You've got this, sweetheart. Remember who you are." Olivia smiled softly. Her mother had been her rock through the darkest days, the voice reminding her she was worthy of love even when Derek's words echoed in her mind like poison. The receptionist gestured toward the hallway. "Conference room 2. Mr. Sullivan is already here." Olivia's heart hammered as she walked down the corridor, but she kept her breathing steady. The walls displayed framed certificates and awards, cold reminders of the world Derek valued. A world where people were measured by their usefulness, where love was conditional, where a wife who couldn't provide children was simply discarded. She paused outside the conference room door. Through the frosted glass, she could see Derek's silhouette. For a moment, the old fear tried to creep back in. But then she felt a gentle flutter in her belly, a tiny reminder of the strength she'd discovered. She pushed the door open. Derek sat at the head of the mahogany table, flanked by 2 attorneys in expensive suits. At 35, he remained devastatingly handsome, the kind of good looks that money enhanced and preserved. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw strong, his blue eyes calculating. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people earned in 2 months. When he saw Olivia enter, something flickered across his face. Was it surprise? Disappointment that she didn't look broken? He had expected her to be destroyed by their separation. Instead, Olivia walked in radiating quiet strength. She wore minimal makeup, letting her natural beauty shine through. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders. She looked healthier than she had in the final year of their marriage, when his constant criticism had slowly eroded her sense of self-worth. "Olivia," Derek said, his voice carrying that familiar mixture of authority and charm that had once made her weak. "Thank you for coming. Let's make this quick and painless." She took her seat across from him. Her attorney, Patricia Holmes, settled beside her with an encouraging nod. Patricia was a fierce woman in her 50s who had built her career defending women in difficult divorces. She had seen Olivia at her absolute lowest and had helped her climb back to solid ground. The meeting began with cold formalities. Assets. Properties. Bank accounts. Derek had been surprisingly generous in the settlement, probably out of guilt, or perhaps just to speed things along so he could marry Jessica Lane, the 24-year-old fashion influencer who had replaced Olivia in his bed and his life. The legal talk droned on. Olivia remained quiet, her hands folded calmly on the table. She had reviewed everything with Patricia weeks ago. She wanted nothing beyond what was fair. Derek could keep the downtown penthouse. The lake house could be sold. She only needed enough to start fresh, to build a life on her own terms. As Patricia slid the final documents across the table, Derek leaned back in his chair, studying Olivia with unusual intensity. "You look different," he said suddenly, cutting off his attorney mid-sentence. "Are you seeing someone?" The question hung heavy in the air. Olivia met his gaze steadily. That's no longer your concern, Derek. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Patricia pushed the papers closer. All that remains is your signature, Olivia. Then you're free. Olivia reached for the pen. As she leaned forward, the navy coat shifted. The fabric, so carefully arranged, fell open slightly. For just a heartbeat, the unmistakable curve of her belly was visible. Round. Full. Undeniable. Derek's eyes went wide. The pen he'd been holding clattered onto the table. His attorneys exchanged confused glances, uncertain what had caused their client's sudden reaction. Patricia, who knew the truth, simply watched with quiet satisfaction. What? Derek whispered, his voice strangled. What is that? Olivia straightened in her chair. There was no point hiding it anymore. She let the coat fall away completely. Her hand moved protectively to her abdomen, to the life growing inside her. The life Derek had told her she was incapable of creating. I'm pregnant, she said simply, her voice steady and clear. 7 months along. The color drained from Derek's face. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His carefully composed expression shattered completely. That's impossible, he breathed. You can't be. We tried for years. The doctors said. The doctors said there was a very small chance, Olivia interrupted calmly. They never said impossible. You were the one who decided I was broken. You were the one who called me defective. The words hit Derek like physical blows. Olivia watched as memories played across his features. The fights. The accusations. The night he had finally said the words that shattered their marriage beyond any possibility of repair. The memory came unbidden, vivid and sharp as broken glass. It had been a freezing February night, rain pelting against their penthouse windows. Derek had returned from a business dinner, his mood already sour from some deal gone wrong. Olivia had been curled up on the sofa, researching yet another fertility specialist, desperate to give him what he wanted most. He'd walked in, poured himself whiskey, and looked at her with such cold contempt it froze her blood. I'm done with this, Olivia. Done with the appointments, the treatments, the constant disappointment. You're useless to me. What kind of woman can't give her husband a child? She had tried to reach for him, to explain they could keep trying, that there were other options. But he'd pulled away, his face twisted with disgust. I deserve better than this. Better than you. Jessica would never put me through this hell. That was the night Olivia realized her marriage was over. Not because of the fertility struggles, but because the man she loved had never truly loved her back. She had been an accessory, a placeholder, someone to fill a role until someone better, more useful came along. Now, standing in this conference room, Derek stared at her pregnant form as though seeing a ghost. Whose is it? He demanded, his voice rising with desperation. Who's the father? Olivia felt righteous anger rise in her chest, hot and cleansing. Yours, Derek. This baby is yours. The room fell silent. Even the attorneys seemed to hold their breath. Derek's face cycled through emotions, shock, disbelief, desperate hope, crushing despair. He stumbled back to his chair, gripping the edge of the table. But how? When? We were still married when this happened, Olivia said calmly. Do the math. This child was conceived before you moved out. Before you started parading Jessica around town like your trophy. Derek ran his hands through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. A baby. My baby. Olivia, this changes everything. We can't get divorced now. We have to try again. For the baby. Patricia placed a warning hand on Olivia's arm, but Olivia shook her head. She had known this moment would come. Had prepared for it in the mirror every morning for weeks. No, Derek. This doesn't change anything. You wanted a divorce because I couldn't give you a child. Well, I'm giving you one. But I'm not giving you me. Not anymore. You can't keep my child from me, Derek said, that dangerous edge creeping into his voice. The same tone he used in boardrooms when someone challenged him. I'm not keeping anything from you, Olivia replied, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. You'll have visitation rights, support arrangements, everything legal and proper. But I won't be your wife. You destroyed that possibility the night you called me useless. Derek looked desperately at his attorneys, as though they could fix this, make Olivia see reason. But they remained silent, understanding this was beyond their jurisdiction. This was about hearts, not contracts. Please, Derek said, and Olivia had never heard him beg before. I made a mistake. I was cruel and wrong. But we can fix this. Think about what's best for the baby. A child needs both parents. This child will have both parents, Olivia said firmly. But those parents won't be married to each other. I've spent 6 months learning to live without you, Derek. 6 months discovering who I am when I'm not trying to be what you wanted. And I like this version of myself. I'm stronger. I'm happier. I'm free. She picked up the pen. With a steady hand that didn't shake even once, she signed her name on the divorce papers. The ink seemed to glow in the afternoon light streaming through the windows. Patricia added her signature as witness and pushed the documents to Derek's side of the table. Your turn, Patricia said coolly. Derek stared at the papers as though they were a death sentence. What about Jessica? What am I supposed to tell her? That's your problem, not mine, Olivia said, standing. She gathered her coat around herself, suddenly eager to leave this place, these people, this old life behind. You chose Jessica when you decided I wasn't enough. Now you get to live with that choice. As she walked toward the door, Derek called out one last time, his voice breaking. Olivia, wait. We can work this out. I'll leave Jessica. We'll raise this baby together. I'll be different this time. I swear. Olivia paused at the door, her hand on the handle. She looked back at him, this man who had once been her entire world, and felt nothing but pity. You won't leave Jessica, Derek. She's everything you said you wanted in a wife. Beautiful, young, ambitious, willing to be your trophy. The only problem is she'll never give you what I'm giving you now. And that must be absolutely killing you. She left before he could respond. Walking out of the conference room, out of the building, out of that life. Behind her, she heard raised voices, Derek arguing with his attorneys, but she didn't look back. Her future was ahead of her now, not behind. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of coral and gold. Olivia placed both hands on her belly, feeling the gentle movements of her baby. This child, this impossible miracle, had given her something more precious than Derek's love ever had. It had given her purpose, strength, and the courage to choose herself. Her phone buzzed. A message from Patricia, he signed. It's done. You're free. Olivia smiled through her tears. Free. After so many years of trying to be enough for someone else, she was finally free to just be herself. Building dreams from broken pieces. The apartment Olivia rented was nothing like the penthouse she'd shared with Derek. It sat on the 4th floor of a modest building in a tree-lined neighborhood where children played in the courtyard and neighbors actually knew each other's names. The living room was small but filled with morning sunlight. She had decorated it with soft cream colors and touches of mint green and pale yellow, preparing a nursery corner for the baby who would arrive in just 2 months. Olivia had worried she might feel lonely in this new life. Instead, she felt liberated. Her days settled into a peaceful rhythm that felt like medicine for her soul. Morning walks in the nearby park where ducks swam in the pond. Prenatal yoga classes where she'd made friends with other expecting mothers. Reading books about parenting and rediscovering her love for watercolor painting, something she'd abandoned when Derek insisted his wife didn't need hobbies. She had started working as a freelance graphic designer, taking on projects from her laptop. Creating again filled her with a sense of purpose she'd forgotten existed. Her first client had been a small bakery owned by an elderly couple who wanted a logo. When they'd seen her work, they'd hugged her and paid double what she'd asked. That money had bought the rocking chair that now sat in her nursery corner. It was during one of her routine prenatal checkups that everything shifted again. The clinic was small and welcoming, decorated with cheerful murals of animals and clouds. Dr. Rachel Foster was a kind woman in her 40s who actually listened when Olivia spoke, so different from the cold specialists Derek had dragged her to. "How are you feeling today, Olivia?" Dr. Foster asked as she prepared the ultrasound equipment. "Good. Tired, but good. The baby's been active lately." Dr. Foster smiled as she applied the cool gel to Olivia's belly. "Let's take a look at this little one." The familiar whooshing sound of the baby's heartbeat filled the room. Olivia never got tired of hearing it, that steady rhythm that reminded her miracles were real. Dr. Foster moved the wand across Olivia's belly, her expression focused. Then she paused. Moved the wand again. Her eyebrows rose. "Olivia," she said slowly, "when was your last ultrasound?" "About 6 weeks ago." "Why? Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. But I need you to look at this screen very carefully." Olivia's heart jumped into her throat as she turned to look. On the screen, she could see the familiar shape of her baby. But then Dr. Foster pointed to another area. "Do you see this?" she asked gently. Olivia squinted at the screen. And then she saw it. Another shape. Another heartbeat. 2 babies. Twins. "Oh my God," Olivia whispered, tears immediately streaming down her face. "There's 2 of them." 2 healthy babies, Dr. Foster confirmed, her own eyes bright with emotion. "Looks like one was hiding behind the other. This happens sometimes. Congratulations, Olivia. You're having twins." Olivia sobbed, overwhelmed with joy and terror and wonder all at once. 2 babies. Derek had told her she was broken, that she'd never have even one child. And here she was, carrying 2 miracles. That evening, sitting in her small living room with her hands on her belly, Olivia called her mother. "Twins, Mom," she said through happy tears. "I'm having twins." Her mother's voice was thick with emotion. "Oh, sweetheart. You see? You were never broken. You were just waiting for the right time. For a time when you were strong enough to do this on your own." "I'm scared," Olivia admitted. "What if I can't handle 2 babies by myself?" "You won't be by yourself," her mother said firmly. "You have me. You have Patricia. You have your new friends. And most importantly, you have yourself. The woman who walked away from a man who tried to destroy her spirit. If you can do that, you can do anything." Over the following weeks, Derek tried relentlessly to insert himself back into Olivia's life. Expensive flower arrangements appeared at her door. Text messages filled her phone. He showed up at her apartment one evening with elaborate baby gifts, things no newborn would ever need, designer clothes, a crib that cost more than her monthly rent, toys that looked like art installations. "Please, Olivia," he begged at her doorway. "Let me be part of this. Let me prove I've changed." Olivia had looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man motivated not by love but by ego. He couldn't stand that she was thriving without him. Couldn't stand that she'd achieved what he'd said was impossible. "Derek," she'd said calmly, "you can be a father to this baby. But you cannot be my husband. I don't love you anymore. Actually, I'm not sure I ever really loved you. I loved who I hoped you could be. But that person doesn't exist. Is it because of Jessica? He'd asked desperately. I ended things with her. I told her about the baby. It's not about Jessica. It's about me choosing myself for once. It's about me understanding that I deserve someone who loves me even when I'm not useful to them. Even when I can't give them what they want. You never loved me, Derek. You loved what you thought I could provide. She'd closed the door gently but firmly, leaving him standing in the hallway with his expensive gifts. Her yoga class had become her sanctuary. The other women, all at various stages of pregnancy, had rallied around her when she'd shared her story. They'd organized a baby shower in the park, bringing handmade gifts and home-cooked food. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, a grandmother from Taiwan, had started teaching her how to make traditional soups for after the birth. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Olivia sat in her rocking chair, hands on her belly. She felt both babies moving, their tiny limbs pushing against her palms. In that moment, watching the sky turn from gold to purple, she understood something profound. She had spent so many years believing Derek when he said she was broken. But she'd never been broken. She'd just been in the wrong place, with the wrong person, at the wrong time. These babies weren't just miracles. They were proof that sometimes the universe waits until you're strong enough to handle your blessings. Sometimes it waits until you love yourself enough to believe you deserve them. 2 months later, on a warm Tuesday morning, Olivia's water broke while she was painting in her apartment. The contractions started gently, then built with increasing intensity. Her mother, who had moved in 2 weeks earlier, calmly called the hospital while helping Olivia to the car. The labor was long and exhausting. 18 hours of breathing through pain, of gripping her mother's hand, of pushing past every limit she thought she had. Dr. Foster stayed with her the entire time, offering encouragement and strength. What Olivia didn't know was that Derek had somehow found out. He'd called the hospital obsessively until a sympathetic nurse had confirmed Olivia was there. He'd rushed over, still in his work clothes, panic and desperation written across his face. When he appeared in the doorway of her hospital room during a brief pause between contractions, Olivia was too exhausted to argue. "Please," he'd said, his voice breaking. "Please let me be here. I know I don't deserve it. But these are my children too." Olivia had looked at her mother, who'd squeezed her hand supportively. "It's your choice, sweetheart. You can stay," Olivia had said finally, too tired to fight. "But this doesn't change anything between us." Derek had nodded, tears streaming down his face as he took a chair in the corner, watching as Olivia brought his children into the world. At 3:47 in the morning, after one final exhausting push, the first baby emerged with a powerful cry. A boy, healthy and perfect, with a full head of dark hair. "One more, Olivia," Dr. Foster encouraged. "You're almost there." 7 minutes later, the second baby arrived. Another boy, smaller but just as vocal, his tiny fists waving in protest at the bright lights. Olivia sobbed as the nurses placed both babies on her chest, their warm little bodies against her skin. She had never felt anything so profound, so overwhelming, so perfectly right. Derek stood frozen across the room, staring at his sons with an expression of pure wonder mixed with devastating regret. "They're perfect," he whispered. "Olivia, they're perfect. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Before Olivia could respond, there was a commotion in the hallway. Jessica Lane burst through the door, her face contorted with anger and hurt. "So it's true," she spat, glaring at Derek. "You've been lying to me for months. Telling me it was over with her, that you were just handling legal matters. But here you are, playing happy family." "Jessica, please," Derek started, but she cut him off. "No. I'm done. I'm done being second choice to a woman you claim you don't love anymore. You're pathetic, Derek. You threw away your marriage for me, and now you'd throw me away too. For what? For babies?" She stormed out, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Derek looked utterly lost, standing between the door and the bed where Olivia held their sons. "I don't expect you to take me back," he said quietly, his voice raw. "I know I destroyed everything good we had. But please, Olivia. Please let me be a father to them. Let me do this one thing right." Olivia looked down at her sleeping babies, then back at Derek. She saw a broken man, someone who'd finally realized what his cruelty had cost him. But she also saw that it was too late for them. Some things, once shattered, can't be put back together. "You can be their father," she said softly. "But you need to understand something. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for them. Every child deserves a father who shows up. Who tries. So you can visit. You can be involved." "But Derek, I meant what I said. We're done. I don't love you anymore." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I understand. Thank you. That's more than I deserve." 6 months later, Olivia's life had transformed in ways she never imagined possible. Her apartment had evolved into a cheerful space filled with baby laughter and colorful toys. She'd hired a part-time nanny, Mrs. Chen's daughter, which allowed her to expand her graphic design business. Her client list had grown so much she'd had to turn down projects. Word had spread about her talent, her reliability, her creativity. The twins, named Julian and Christopher, were healthy, happy babies with their mother's auburn hair and their father's blue eyes. They were different as night and day. Julian was calm and observant, while Christopher was vocal and energetic. Olivia loved them with a fierceness that sometimes took her breath away. Derek had kept his word. He visited every Saturday, bringing age-appropriate toys and books. He'd sit on her living room floor, playing with his sons with a tenderness Olivia had never seen in him before. He'd lost weight, and there were shadows under his eyes. His business was struggling, and he'd moved from the penthouse to a smaller condo. "He's paying for his choices," her mother had observed one Saturday after Derek left. "Not just financially. You can see it in his eyes. He knows exactly what he lost." Olivia had nodded, feeling neither satisfaction nor sorrow at his situation. She'd moved past anger into something calmer, something like indifference mixed with compassion. She hoped Derek would find happiness eventually, but she knew it wouldn't be with her. One evening, after putting the twins down for the night, Olivia stood at her window, looking out at the city lights. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Broken, desperate, convinced she was worthless because she couldn't give her husband what he wanted. And she looked at who she was now. A mother. A successful business owner. A woman who'd learned that her worth wasn't determined by anyone else's opinion of her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Patricia: "Saw your new logo design in that magazine spread. You're amazing. So proud of you." Olivia smiled. She'd come so far from that conference room where she'd signed divorce papers while hiding a pregnancy. She'd learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the doorway to the best thing. That sometimes people leave your life to make room for the person you're meant to become. She heard a soft cry from the nursery. Christopher, wanting his late-night feeding. As she lifted her son from his crib, breathing in his sweet baby smell, she felt a contentment so deep it brought tears to her eyes. This was her life now. Not perfect, but hers. Built by her own hands, filled with her own choices, blessed with love she'd created herself. Derek had told her she was broken. But in the breaking, she discovered something he never understood. She wasn't a vase that shattered and became useless. She was a mosaic, and every broken piece had become part of a more beautiful picture. Her scars had become her strength. Her pain had become her power. And her greatest miracle wasn't the impossible pregnancy. It was learning to love herself enough to walk away from someone who never deserved her in the first place. As Christopher nursed peacefully in her arms, Olivia whispered a promise to her sons: I'll teach you that love should never make you feel small. That the right person will celebrate you, not diminish you. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself." Outside her window, the city continued its endless rhythm. But inside her small apartment, Olivia had found something more valuable than any penthouse, any expensive gift, any hollow promise. She'd found peace. She'd found purpose. She'd found herself. And that was the happiest ending of all.